Hi guys, it's Arielle. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome to another podcast. I'm sorry, I know my voice sounds so tired. I am so tired. We just got back from spending the long weekend with Jean's family in the Pays de la Loire, which I think is Loire Valley in English. But basically, we spent the weekend celebrating his grandma's 86th birthday, which was really fun for me, of course, because I don't have my family in France, so I love to be a part of Jean's family celebrations. And we decided to bring his grandma a magnum bottle of champagne that we picked up in Reims on our last trip. And we also made the double-decker birthday cake. It was 2 vanilla slabs with a homemade raspberry jam filling. And it was the brightest pink icing that I could make. Sean was like, it looks like we're giving this to a teenage girl. And I was like, that is the point, Sean. But it was honestly so chaotic. Initially, we had made 3 tiers. We had vanilla, chocolate, vanilla. But I was just so excited about the raspberry jam that I made that I overstuffed it, like completely overstuffed it. And as soon as we put the third layer on, the whole cake started to tilt. And I just immediately broke down in tears because it was midnight. I just saw the entire day's worth of work go down the drain. So thankfully, we were able to save 2 of the vanilla layers and remake the cake and everything. But yeah, it was it was an interesting experience. I've never had that before where a cake sort of fell. I think I really just overloaded on the jam, but anyways, that's what we brought. And the first day that we drove up, we ended up going cherry picking with his family. I will put a little picture on screen and I'll also leave it linked down below, like the farm where we went, because it was so much fun and it was so easy. Like we just drove up, we had our own baskets, and we spent a couple hours picking cherries. And it was pretty cheap. It was, I think, €4 for a kilogram of cherries, which is great in my books. I thought that could be a fun activity if you are traveling through the Loire Valley at the moment. And I was telling my mom about it too. She really feels like Loire Valley and Ontario, which is the province that I'm from in Canada, are similar in climate, in landscape, in agriculture. She was like, Arielle, right now in Canada, it is also Ontario, it's also cherry picking season. So yeah, I love visiting Loire Valley. I think if I could, there's so many places I want to move, you guys know this, but it's one of the places that I think I'd be really happy in. And I actually know I would be happy there because I spent years there. From 2020 to around 2022, I ended up staying in Loire Valley with my ex and his family during COVID. And it was beautiful. Like, it was really fantastic. If you know anything about that area, you have one of the bigger wine regions, and there's also tons of castles. So it's just I think it's a great place to go if you want to see a different wine region in France other than Bordeaux or Reims. And it's very green, it's very fresh, it's a really lovely place. I'm definitely going to add it onto my list of itineraries that I make. At the moment, I'm almost done Fontainebleau. I'm halfway done Reims. Then I want to do Bourgogne. I want to go visit Marlowe's. And yeah, then either Bretagne or Pays de la Loire. I don't know. There's so many places to see in France. It's one of those countries where you have so many different climates and so many different cultures in kind of a small country. Like, Canada, by comparison, I think is 11 times bigger than France. And I haven't been obviously everywhere in Canada, but I do think that the breadth of temperatures, of climates, of cultures in France is pretty impressive for how small the country is. So yeah, that was our weekend. And the reason I'm so tired is because we left so early. Oh my gosh, our train to, I don't even know. I have no idea which village we stayed in. It was full farmland where we stayed. Jean's mom had rented sort of a little, almost like a house in farmland where we could all stay together. Anyways, we took our train at like 7 in the morning to Angers, and then coming back, we're supposed to drive back with Jean's cousin, but his cousin didn't want to leave until after lunch, And if there's one thing that you need to know about traveling in France on the long weekends, especially by car or by train, really, any method of transportation, is that there is so much travel across the country going on during a long weekend that you will be sitting in hours of traffic, and the trains will be booked very fast, the buses will be booked fast, and the prices will be extremely expensive. And so we weren't able to take a train back to Paris because we were looking too late. A month before was already too late to find a return trip train. So we were supposed to drive back with Jean's cousin. He wanted to leave after lunch. And we were just like, no way. We have been there, done that. We do not want to spend the entire day in traffic. So we ended up booking a BlaBlaCar, which is sort of like ride sharing. It's an app that connects people who are driving from one city to another, and you can be one of their passengers. And so we ended up doing that. And this older gentleman who drove us back to Paris, left at about 8:30. We had to get to the city he was leaving from. So we ended up waking up again at 6 in the morning to get out of the house by 7. It was a lot. It was an exhausting weekend for sure, but a really nice weekend. So yeah, back in Paris. Very excited to be here, which reminds me of being back in Paris is that number one, thank you everybody who filled out the summer meetup survey. I haven't talked about it in a hot minute. I do apologize. But overwhelmingly, you guys want to have the summer meetup in September. So that is what we're going to go with. I think it will be the second weekend of September, like the Saturday, and it'll be an early afternoon activity. I think that's what I got from the survey that I did. So I am going to create a new sign-up survey. That way you can give me your email and I can properly send out, an invitation and the details to people who can make it. So I'll leave that link down below. The reason why I'm speaking so casually about it is because I haven't made this survey yet. So I don't know what it's like, but basically it's just going to be a sign up form. That way I know who wants to come, who's available, and then I can obviously send everyone an email. But what I didn't do last time that I really regret is I didn't set up a form of communication for everybody. So I didn't do a WhatsApp group. I didn't do an Instagram group. And so I felt like it was challenging for people to connect after. So this time around, I do want to have a method of communicating that's not email. So stay tuned. And I do want to stress this. I think you guys know my personality. I think you know me. I am the hostess with the mostest. I love hosting. I will bend over backwards to make sure everybody has a good time. It's I love hosting. It's a joy for me. But the last time I did a meetup, it was really hard to plan for a certain amount of people. Not just plan, but also buy little party favors, buy food, make food, sort of prepare for a certain amount of people, and then have, I think it was 2/3 of people cancel last minute. So if when you're signing up, you could just be mindful of that. If you're not sure you're going to be available, or if you know early on in advance that you've signed up and now you're no longer available, I would really appreciate it if you could let me know, or if I don't know. It was really very hard for me emotionally, mentally, to have so many people cancel last minute. And it's something that, I'll be honest, I don't want to be mean about it, but it's so hard even in my daily life. You guys know I talk about this all the time, but when I'm planning a party, when I spend weeks preparing for a party, it's such a letdown when people cancel last minute. So voila, that's all I wanted to say about that topic. I am so incredibly excited to meet you guys. It was so much fun last year. I talked about it in my podcast a year ago, but it literally felt like just friends meeting up and having a picnic. It was just every person who attended, I think, had similar personality traits, and it was just a really fun afternoon. So I believe it'll be equally as fun, maybe even more fun, because I want to plan more things. But yeah, and it's interesting because I do think that both I gravitate to a certain type of person and a certain type of person gravitates towards me. And I noticed this with my interviews. A lot of the interviews that I do on my main channel with local artisans, local businesses, they're all very similar to each other and similar to me. And every time I do an interview and I finish the interview, I'll talk with that artisan even more, and they'll be like, oh, you should come visit me in my studio in Normandy. We would love to have you for a weekend. And I'm like, this is so who I am as well, going above and beyond for people and inviting people and stuff. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because I think that people who watch my channel, people who I get to interview, I do think that there is some sort of personality that I sort of gravitate to and attract. So all that to say, it's going to be fun. Sign up sheet down below. Okay, first order of business on my list of topics for this podcast are espadrilles. I hope you guys would have seen the post that I made on Instagram. If you didn't, I want to talk about it now in today's podcast, because I also got a couple messages and even comments on videos asking me where my video went on the espadrilles that I unboxed and tried on and that I loved. And the answer is I deleted that video because I don't even have words for the negative experience that I had with this company. And you guys know me, I'm never going to recommend anything to you that I don't 100% use, enjoy, believe in, and have had a good experience with. And so the brand of espadrilles that I had made that video about and that I really talked about a lot because I believed in their products is called Menebi. They're espadrilles that are made in Italy. And I have been wearing these shoes for over 6 years. Like, I have pairs in my closet from 6 years ago that are in pristine condition, despite the fact that I have just worn them every summer, all summer long, on rocks, on gravel. Like, I have put these shoes through it. And so I very confidently ordered 3 new pairs this year because I noticed that they had flat espadrilles on their website. And for someone like me who's very tall, who doesn't really like to wear heels all the time, I was like, this is great. And they were beautiful. They had ribbons, loved them. They were pricey. They were 100 euros for the flat ones, plus you had to pay 10 euros in shipping. So the pair of shoes was not cheap. And I was okay to spend that money because I thought that they were going to be the same quality as I had 6 years ago from those shoes. And, they arrive, I try them on, I wear them for just under a month. I would say like a handful of times. And one day I look at the bottom and the entire sole, like where the toe box, the entire sole was just disintegrating. And you could see the espadrille material through the rubber that had disintegrated. And not just that, but the sole of the Menebi shoes, they aren't, I want to say, lined with a leather shoe sole. Like, a lot of the higher quality espadrilles that are flat or wedges have a leather sole and then the actual espadrille sole and then a rubber bottom. So they're very stable, they're very secure, they're very high quality, but these ones didn't. They were just, I'm sorry, I don't know what the material is, but they were just the espadrille material and then the rubber. And so not only was the rubber wearing away, but also the shoe itself was just like falling apart. And I was livid. I'm like, for a shoe company, you can't be selling shoes that disintegrate after less than a month of wear. And I didn't even think twice. I just reached out to the brand and I was like, hi, I purchased these. Here's a photo of what they look like. And I sent 7 photos of all the damages on these shoes. And they responded to me. They were like, yeah, we don't see any damage. And I sent them back the photos with red circles where the rubber especially had worn off. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't see a problem with this? The rubber is gone. And they were like, oh yeah, that's just normal like wear and tear for espadrilles. We're not going to do anything for you. And I literally said, you are a shoe company. The soles of your shoes can't disintegrate after less than a month of use. That's not normal. And they kept writing me back like extremely rudely. And they kept saying, there is nothing wrong with these shoes. We will not be repairing them. We'll not be replacing them. We'll not be refunding them. Like, end of story. That's our final decision. Goodbye. And I'm like, I don't think you know who you're dealing with. Like, I am the advocate for customer care and customer service. I'm so sick of companies treating customers like absolute garbage because the amount of money that I spent on these shoes was not negligible. But like for 3 pairs, I spent over 300 euros. And to literally be treated like garbage by their customer service team when there's clearly something wrong with their shoes felt terrible. So I immediately filed 2 claims in the small claims court, both for France and for the European Union, because companies like are obligated, EU companies are obligated to have a 2-year warranty on their products to replace, repair, refund them if they are defective in those 2 years. That's just the law. And so I was well within my rights to complain because, again, they're a shoe company. Like, if you're selling shoes, they should be able to last longer than a month, you know? And especially because I still have shoes, so I have proof from 6 years ago that their shoes did not disintegrate like this 6 years ago. They don't have any sort of information on their website like, don't wear these on concrete, don't wear these on rocks. Our shoe process has changed. You will not be receiving the same quality shoes as you did 6 years ago. Like, my point is, I told them, I was like, I have filed 2 small claims courts. I have filed 2 claims in the small claims courts, and I am happy to wait for that answer because I know I'm in the right here. If you would like, we can resolve this amicably. As I've said, I'm open to a repair, a replacement, or a refund. Ideally, we resolve this amicably, but I am absolutely happy to wait for a response from small claims court. And the thing that drives me nuts, like nuts about this, is because you have a content creator that is promoting your brand, that is making videos about how much they love your products. They're doing that for free. Not just that, but involving their lawyers to even respond to a claim from the small claims court. All of that would cost them more than just repairing my shoes. They didn't want to admit that there was a defect in the shoes that I had received because it only happened to one of the 3 pairs. Granted, I probably wore that pair most than the others, but my point is they were obviously defective. And instead of admitting that they were defective and offering a proper solution, offering respect and a solution to me, they decided to shut everything down. And I'm just like, it is just not even cost effective for you to do that at this point. And after about 24 emails back and forth, they finally agreed to give me a store credit for the espadrilles, which is not an ideal solution. But when you do file a claim with the small claims court, you do have an obligation to try and resolve things amicably. And so I was like, okay, well, that is, I guess, an amicable solution. If they're going to give me a store credit, then I can repurchase the espadrilles. I already checked with a cobbler who said that he could replace the soles of the espadrilles for 50 euros. And I was like, great, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to cut my losses here. Voila, that is just a very long-winded story to tell you why I deleted that video, why I really don't think you should buy espadrilles from that brand. I'm still looking for espadrilles, so I'm still going to test other brands. And hopefully I can find something that has better quality, better durability in my size, of course, because I have big feet. But Minebi is not it. I really don't recommend that you put yourself through the same process that I did. And I just completely regret ever giving them an ounce of airtime on my channel or on Instagram. It was just such a terrible experience. I am so appalled by their customer service. I don't even have more words than that. The next topic on my list is something I want to talk about, even if I wasn't here in Paris to witness it, which is the PSG, the soccer team of Paris, their victory and the violence and rioting that ensued. There's been a lot of discussion about this, and rightfully so. I think there's a lot to be said. So I did look at a lot of different videos from news outlets that were reporting on this, that were showing the damages, that had footage of the actual riots the night that they occurred. Essentially what happened is the Paris soccer team won. I think they won the Champions League, and I don't know how many thousands or hundreds of thousands of men took to the streets, notably along the Champs-Élysées, so in the 8th arrondissement, and just wreaked havoc. And there's a lot of commentary on this. I think on one side, you have people who are being very critical of the fact that all of this violence is coming from predominantly men. There are definitely racist remarks being made that I won't even get into because I think they're completely uncalled for. You can look at the footage like it's, all men, no matter race, class, like it's the common denominator is men. And then you have an opposing side who says that this type of outrage, this type of violence has always been present in sports and is important because it is a type of protest from the middle class towards the rich. That's sort of the other side. And I do hear that. Like, I hear that side of things because, France is known for revolution and for protests. And I get that. But I think my issue is, I have a couple issues, is number one, it wasn't a protest. Like, there wasn't a cause that people were uniting under. Like, their soccer team won, which should be a celebration. And instead of celebrating and having that be the cause that everybody's united under, a portion of these fans decided to destroy restaurants, destroy stores, destroy public property, things like bus stops, like lamp posts, the streets. There was also so much violence towards other people. There were 2 deaths. Over 500 people were arrested. It was just an obscene amount of violence. And again, like I've said, this violence wasn't done in any type of protest. Like, there was nothing that was uniting these people other than violence. And at the same time, when I hear these people argue that it's an act of protest and of revolution, I'm like, at what cost? Like, how can you argue that when people died? Like, when small business owners had their shops destroyed and raided, when tourists on holiday felt extremely unsafe, when car after car after car was smashed, when public bus stops were smashed. Like, I don't know. I don't really understand that side of the argument, but what it made me think of is last year, you guys know, I went to the Eras Tour with my sister, and the Eras Tour around the world was this reunion of women, of teenagers, of girls. Like, it was this moment of celebration for a lot of women, and we celebrated in droves. Like, people who didn't even have tickets, they were outside the concert venues exchanging friendship bracelets and just having a good time and celebrating Taylor Swift and the concert and coming together didn't result in violence at the end of the day. And so I do sort of believe that there's a disproportionate amount of violence that comes from men during these celebrations. Like, it is so strange to me that your soccer team wins and the response is to destroy the city of that soccer team. Like, it's bizarre to me, honestly. And again, I didn't get to see the damages. I don't go to the 8th. I actually tend to avoid that area because it is so tourist centric. And even if I had been in Paris, like, we were out of town obviously for Jean's grandma's birthday, but even if I had been in Paris, everybody knows systematically, and there were actually warnings, like, people were given warnings. The Champs-Élysées was boarded up prior to this match. People know that big sporting events like this create violence afterwards. Not create, but ends up violent after. And so I would just never ever put myself in a position where I would even want to be close to that. And there were a lot of women who came forward afterwards who just wanted to go and celebrate and felt completely unsafe, who felt violated, and were coming out and testifying against all of this violence and what they saw and what they experienced. And it's just so sad. Like, I don't know. I'll have to think about it more, maybe to form a more clear opinion, but the first thing that came to mind was the Taylor Swift concert, the tour versus this soccer match. And both are very gendered, I want to say. Like, one attracts more women and the other attracts more men. And you see the outcomes afterwards and they're just not the same. And I just don't know under what circumstance you could condone anything like what happened this weekend. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. There are a lot of small businesses who are being interviewed, who are talking about literally how their life's work and investment has crumbled. They don't even know how they can pay for repairs. I don't know. You guys get the gist. I can leave a couple links to the medias in France that are talking about it, that are diffusing clips and stuff. But it is just really sad. I find it is unnecessary, and hopefully as more people talk about it, as it's more mediatized, there is change over time. Like, there is change in the behavior of sports fans, soccer fans, when their team wins, because at this point, I think it's just reached a level of violence that's unacceptable. On a happier note, the last topic that I wanted to talk about today is the fact that it is 1 year post weight loss for me. I went on this huge body and health transformation last year. I talked about it through that entire series, so I don't want to rehash it, but the Spark Notes version is that, my whole life I had been around 150 pounds. During COVID, I think, when I was a lot more sedentary, moving to Paris, working from home, all that, my lifestyle and my injuries, because a big part, I think, to having an extremely sedentary lifestyle is the fact that I broke my hand 2 years ago. There's another injury in there that I'm forgetting. Oh my gosh, the infection that I had in Greece, the second time I broke my hand. All of this sort of led up to progressive weight gain. A lot of weight gain. I weighed in at 177, I think, when normally my body weight is around 150. So that's like 27 pounds that I had gained in over 2 years. And it was hard. It was a long, hard journey getting back down to 150 pounds. It required so much discipline. And I look back on that and I'm like, wow, I am so proud of myself. I'm so impressed with myself. And of course, a part of it was aesthetics, I guess you could say. I didn't like the way that I looked anymore. I didn't like this. The new weight gain was unfamiliar to what I had lived my whole life with, and it did bother me. I think as well, when you're someone who creates content, who is constantly editing videos of yourself, you look at yourself all the time and you pick apart your flaws more. So it got to a point, the reason why I started the whole journey is it got to a point where I really didn't like the way I looked, and I didn't like the way I was eating and my exercise. I didn't feel healthy. So both of those reasons led to me going on a really powerful, positive weight loss journey where I lost the 27 pounds and I got back down to 150. But on the way, I also relearned eating habits, and not necessarily portion control, but calorie and sweets and junk food control, I want to say. And I also got into a regular workout schedule. I picked up boxing, I picked up Muay Thai, I really got back into competitive basketball. I'll be joining a baseball team this year. Like, I really got back into all the sports that I loved that are both muscle training in a way and cardio training, because on top of that, I also started doing abs and arms classes, like where the teacher is there and lifting weights with you and encouraging you, all that. I basically got into this really great routine, both nutritionally and workout wise, and it led me to where I am today. And I just want to say that looking back on the past year, I am like I said, very proud of myself for having done that, but also I have never been happier in my body. I won't say 100% of the time. That's another topic I'll get to in a second, but I would say 95% of the time, I just love the way I feel. I love the way I look, and I think that's the most important. That's the whole reason why I went on this journey. And I think if you find yourself in a similar situation where you aren't happy with the way you look, you're not happy with the way you feel, the foods you're eating and stuff, then I can fully 100% say that it was the best decision of my life to lose the weight and to get back on track health-wise. And I think obviously a big part of it for me is I just feel so much more beautiful now. I really feel like myself. And it's also really opened doors to having an interest in fashion and in vintage. I love the way that I look in clothes now, whereas I didn't before. I think it was overwhelming for me to have to purchase 1 or 2 sizes more than I had my whole life to style clothes on a different body. I think that was hard for me. And now that I'm back to where I have been the majority of my life, I have a new passion for fashion and for style and for putting together looks. And like I said, 95% of the time, I love my body. I love the way I look. But it surprises me because there is this 5% of the time where I feel like I'm very hyper aware of changes to my body. If I feel a little bloated or if I have my period and that's making me bloated, if I go to too many restaurants because I'm filming a video on restaurants, I feel like I'm hyper aware and very critical sometimes of myself. I'm hard on myself, I think. It might be because there's this fear of going back to 177 pounds and worrying that if 1 week I don't get to the gym or if 1 week I do too many restaurants, then the next week I'll wake up and I'll be back where I started a year and a half ago, which obviously is not the case. 1 week of skipping workout classes and eating junk food is never going to destroy the whole journey that you've been on, but there is that 5% where I am hyper aware. And what's interesting about it is every time that happens to me, when I look in the mirror or I put on clothes and I'm like, oh, these feel a little tight, like, oh my gosh, I've gained half the weight back, like, what is happening? I get on the scale, I weigh myself, and I am the exact same weight that I weighed in at a year ago. And it's just interesting how your mind and your body can play tricks on you sometimes. But yeah, other than those moments where I do feel a little bit more critical of myself, I really just have to say it was one of the best decisions that I've ever made for my health, for my body. And it's interesting too because all of the things that I learned when it comes to controlling the amount of sweets I'm eating and not really controlling, because like I said during the journey, is when you stop eating so much sugar, you don't crave that same quantity of sugar. It's almost like an addiction where if you just stop eating it, I mean, that's what worked for me. I stopped eating it not completely, but I stopped eating as much of it. My cravings for it disappeared. And so for this past year, I've been able to really maintain the same eating habits, the same workout habits, and keep my weight stable around 150. So yeah, I just thought I would share that little positive note on my experience a year and a half. I'll put a picture of before and after if you haven't seen my series. It's on my main channel. I can leave it linked down below if it's helpful to you. And I would like to actually start posting cooking videos with the recipes that I use because I still use those recipes today. They are healthy, they're nutritious, they give me energy, and they were a big part to not just getting to my weight loss goal, but maintaining my health today. So I do hope this summer I can film more cooking videos to show that to you guys. I think that brings us to the end of today's podcast. I'm a little bit worried because we have neighbors who are doing construction, and when they pull out the drill plus concrete equals deafening noise, and I heard it go off a couple times. I'm worried that they're going to start really getting into it. So yes, I think I'll wrap this up here. I hope you guys enjoyed catching up. Again, I will leave the sign up form for the September meetup down below, and I'll see you guys soon.